We talking about practice, Porter? We talking about practice?
Porter and Tom, Richmond fans, talking.
Welcome to episode 3 of Spiders Sound Off, your weekly home for all things Richmond Spiders basketball.
We're two Spider alums, season ticket holders, and diehard fans breaking down the game, the players, and the stories behind the stats. And episode 3 will be the first part of our 2-part episode on the men's team, our off-season grades, and what we learned from watching them at practice. We talking about practice, Porter?
Yes, Tom, we are. We're talking about practice. No games for a while, but we did get to take in a men's practice this week, and we talked to Coach Mooney, and we've got some insights into the team, as well as maybe we'll finish with some grades.
Well, after 2 episodes, you've had some bold takes, Porter. This was the first time you watched the Spider practice and sat down with Coach Mooney. Are we ready to win a national championship based on your extremely suspect stretch goal?
You know, Tom, it's going to be fun diving into our player notes based on what we saw. But first, let me just say the following. Winning is the key metric fans care about. It drives good fan behavior. It drives bad fan behavior. It helps us to shore up a sense of belonging and community. It is the key metric. And we were all, as kids, exposed to the famous Vince Lombardi quote, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. But after talking to Coach Mooney, I've got a couple different perspectives that every parent of a child, because you and I both have children the age of the players on our team right now, but we would say probably is even more important than winning. Coach Mooney can be intense in practice, and if that was the only exposure you got, you would say, man, he's tough. He's tough. He's a tough coach to play for because he's so intense. But I think we saw a different side, too.
Well, it was funny, too, watching him. Like, I think the biggest compliment we heard kind of through practice was from Coach Mooney was, not bad, not bad.
Yeah, that was a lot of not bads going on. And when we sat down with him after practice, we talked about the kids on the team and past kids that have played for him. His praise was absolutely effusive.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I think it's common for us, too, and you'll hear some of it later, to take a current player and talk about a prior player. But even Coach did that when we were talking about Bryson McLaughlin. He kind of mentioned Justin Harper and kind of the development path that Justin had.
Yeah, we'll talk about what we saw with Bryson as the podcast goes on. But, he just lit up. I mean, he just lit up about, like, the potential there. And he also he waxed poetic for a while about Mike Walls. I mean, the developing, confident young man that is Mike Walls. And it struck me when we were talking to him in this crazy world of paying players where there's tons of money. I'm sure there are tons of suspect characters whispering in these kids' ears. That as a parent, if you got a kid who's going to go to college and play college basketball, you probably understand that, yeah, winning is important, but there's also something just as important, and that is that your son or daughter develops into a human being that is going to be successful, that they're going to win at the game of life.
And we do have a bit of a correction from our last episode. So, part of that story of Coach Mooney we mentioned last week
Kevin
about
Hovde.
the coaching tree, and Porter talked about somebody named Kevin Hovde. The correction here is that it is Kevin Hovde, Porter.
Yes,
it is not Hovde. So,
apologies to Kevin.
Let's make sure we get that right. But evidence to this, what does Coach Mooney mean to these kids as they get older? I mean, when you have 3 former players all become head coaches, it talks about
all at the same time.
What they learned beyond just the X's and O's on the court.
Prepared for the game of life by Coach Mooney, so that was good. And when you can look at Tyler Burton, and his career at Richmond, he left his senior year to go to Villanova. I don't know exactly what the money that was being offered looked like, but when he got done with Villanova, he came home to train with his Richmond family, the family that helped him develop into the player he has become. And I mean, I think Mooney would be the first to say, he was welcome back because he's part of that Richmond family. And that's the kind of thing that, unless you really sit down and talk to the players and the coaches around the program, you just don't see.
Well, it's small news, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but Burton just had his first summer game with Memphis and had a huge night. So that was exciting to see him kind of fully rehabbed and ready to go.
And so as you guys listen to this, recognize that we are recording right after we saw practice, so these comments are fresh in our mind. The analysis is fresh in our mind. And when this episode gets released, could be some period of days later. So there's other news that could break between now and then, but we just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
So back to the main story here, Porter. It sounds like you no longer see a national championship as our goal.
I would say no, that's not what I'm saying. As my earlier remarks went, fans, they care about winning, and that's the metric that Coach Mooney knows he's judged on. Right? He has a much broader task, and I'm more empathetic to that after talking to him of developing these young men into winners in life. And I don't think there's any debate on that. His legacy is a resounding success. He loves these kids. Very few kids actually will ever get the chance to play in the NBA. And parents who send their kids to play under Coach Mooney so that they can develop in the game of life, I think are doing really well for their development, because I think I like I like the way he has their back in all instances, and the way that they come back to play for him when times are tight.
I did like when we were talking to Coach, you asked him what his goals were. You talked about yours, asked him what his was. He didn't exactly answer that question, but his response was pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's a pro, and so I asked him, "Hey, my goal is to win a national championship. Can you tell me if that's your goal?" He chose his words carefully, but he did say advancing in the tournament is easier than making the tournament. And what I heard that to mean was, we have to overcome the natural obstacles that exist for us playing in a non-major conference to make the tournament. But if we do make the tournament, Mooney is willing to play anyone, anywhere, and I believe he believes he's going to win that game. And so when you get to the tournament, you want a coach who believes that they can win any game. And I think Coach Mooney fully believes you get the right team into the right situation in the tournament, he could take that team far.
Well, one of the things he said too, I mean, he was going through a lot of examples, but I think even the years that we've made the tournament, like we had to have big wins in our conference tournament to make us feel confident we were going to get into the tournament. If you go back to years past when we went to the Sweet 16, we had a schedule of Power 5 conferences, teams from those conferences, and even that didn't guarantee us getting into the tournament. Like, we had to win our semifinal game in that Atlantic 10 tournament to feel confident that we now were going to get a bid whether we won the final or not.
Yeah, and so as Vince Lombardi said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I think that needs an asterisk. And I think, a great leader of college athletes and great college basketball coach was the legendary Pat Summitt. I did a lot of work studying her over the years because I used to give different types of talks to different types of teams about, what it takes to succeed. And she's just one of those people that will influence you and inspire you in life. So I like to read, I'm going to, if you indulge me, Tom, I know, I can drone on, and you have sound effects to drum me off. But if you would indulge me for 2 minutes, I want to read you a letter that Pat Summitt wrote to a player. And that player's freshman year, this was in the early 80s. This was read by that player kind of at her funeral. And also this player goes back to this over and over again when she's got a difficult time in her life. And this kind of speaks to what I just said about Coach Mooney and developing players beyond the basketball court. And so this is how the letter goes. Shelia, this is your first game. I hope you win for your sake, not mine, because winning's nice. It's a good feeling, like the whole world is yours, but it passes this feeling. And what lasts is what you've learned. And what you've learned about is life. That's what sport is all about, life. The whole thing is played out in an afternoon. The happiness of life, the miseries, the joys, the heartbreaks. There's no telling what will turn up. There's no telling how you'll do. You might be a hero or you might be absolutely nothing. There's just no telling. Too much depends on chance and how the ball bounces. I'm not talking about the game, I'm talking about life. But it's life that the game is all about. Just as I said, every game is life and life is a game. A serious one, dead serious. But here's what you do with serious things. You do your best. You take what comes. You take what comes and you run with it. Winning is fun, sure, but winning is not the point. Wanting to win is the point. Not giving up is the point. Never letting up is the point. Never being satisfied with what you've done is the point. The game is never over, no matter what the scoreboard reads or what the referee says. It doesn't end when you come off the court. The secret of the game is in doing your best, to persist and endure, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. I'm proud to be your coach, Pat Summitt. And so yesterday when we were talking to Mooney, that letter kept playing in my mind because, it's the process. He talked about the process with some of the players. We actually brought up Bryson just looks different. It's the process to take the potential and turn that into the great player.
Porter, as you said earlier, winning is the key metric. We were 10-22 last year, finished 13th in the A10, and no one looks back fondly on those results. But it is July, so let's be positive. I do think you can say last year's team was great at everything but basketball. I saw most of those games live from the Robins Center. That team never quit. They worked hard
Gave up
all year long, and while we had 8 Division I wins and 10 wins total, there was no quit in that team. And guess what? 8 of those players returned. 8 out of 10 who could returned, which is more than I think most programs would have. So
it's certainly more than I expected to come back. And I think you and I had a bet, if you remember, the last game. We sit together in the Robins Center. And the last game I said, I'm going to give you a number, and you tell me the over. You take the over, the under on how many of these kids are going to come back after this season. And I set the number at 5.5. And you took the over, I took the under, and you were right.
Yep, we'll have more bets during this podcast during this season for sure. So right now I'm 1-0.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and like I told Coach Mooney, we told Coach Mooney about the bet. I mean, he smiled. He didn't really say anything about it, but I did say, hey, it's a credit to you, Chris, that you believe hard enough in this group, and they believe enough in you to come back and do this again. And we've added some key new elements that I think both you and I feel very optimistic about. From watching yesterday, I think we're in good hands. I think we're going to definitely be in for a better season. But why don't we set the stage? Tell us a little bit about what our experience was.
Practice. Let's talk about practice. And so, thank you first, Jason Vita, who manages strategic communications for the basketball team, invited us, told us about this practice. So, shout out to him. We were on the second level balcony. So if you want to picture this, they're down on the court, kind of in their kind of relatively still new practice facility. We are on the balcony with seats there. There's actually a season ticket holder there that we got to chat with.
DD, we're going to talk to you about your initials. DD, thank you for breaking us in to watch them practice.
The facility is gorgeous. It still looks brand new.
While we were there too, I'll say we downloaded our podcast on DD's phone so that he could follow the podcast. So if you
one more listener.
Give us a like on Spotify, on Apple, or whatever platform you're on. Give us a follow. We definitely would appreciate it.
So a little more context. This was the first practice after the team had a week off. This is week 6 of their practice as a team. They have, I think it's 10 weeks in the summer they're allowed to practice before school starts. And then they kick off practice again as you get closer to the regular season. This practice looked different than pre-NIL days. Coach talked about how before more one-on-one time would have been spent in the summer, more development time with the freshmen. But because of the speed of getting ready with 4 transfers coming in, he said this was very much just like a regular practice. Like they were all out on this practice. This wasn't a let's kind of develop a few people and let everyone else kind of work. This felt and had the energy of a regular season practice.
I would use 2 words to describe the general practice: urgency and intensity. This did not look like a practice in early July. This looked like a practice, a week before games started. And I think that was on purpose. I think, getting the players and the chemistry together and ready for the speed of the game is a priority earlier in the summer this year.
Yeah, after a little bit of kind of warm-ups with the assistant coaches and even some of the players, Mike Walls in particular, kind of leading some very basic kind of stretching and warm-ups. Coach Mooney joined the team on the court. They kind of got together in a circle, and then, gosh, I don't know, it was next 30 or 45 minutes. It was kind of all gas, no breaks in the team kind of going full court, back and forth on passing drills, dribbling drills, defense. The one thing I'll say, Coach Mooney was interesting to see. Kind of, he wears a headset at practice, and there are speakers at on the ceiling, so he doesn't have to scream and yell to get people to hear him. What we learn is that's post his heart issues in 2023. They kind of installed that system so he doesn't have to scream for everyone to hear him. I joke to Porter, he kind of looked like he kind of looked like a Backstreet Boy having that headset.
Grab somebody. I don't even know their
There
songs.
were also good singing there, Porter. There were also multiple times where he took the headset off so he could let a player know he was not happy with the performance on that drill or during that part of the scrimmage.
She flipped the mic up, and you could still catch the gist. But it was he's a coach and he's teaching, and I mean I think the proof is in, like we talked about earlier, the progress these young men make under him in the game of life and also in the game of basketball. I mean, Kevin Anderson, Justin Harper, Dan Giroux, the list is extensive. Jacob Gilliard, Grant Golden, TJ Klein. I mean, just think about the great players that came into Richmond's program and left, probably, not only a much better player, but a better person.
Again, they played hard and fast. They did scrimmage at the end. They had kind of game scenarios. It was 4 minutes left in the game, 6 minutes. They would take their breaks. For some of you who have been critical of certain parts of our game in the past, they did work on free throws. So it was almost like a time to take a break and spread out, shoot free throws for a few minutes, and then get back going.
They run full
100%.
speed. They until their legs, are exhausted, and then they go shoot 2 free throws off on the side. All of them simultaneously shoot 2 free throws. So you replicate shooting free throws under game conditions where you're tired and you've got to muster the energy and the form to hit the shot. So that was interesting.
And the other thing I found interesting, and then I think we're going to jump right into the roster, is that you could tell Mooney would talk differently, as you would expect him to the Mike Walls and Tynes of the team versus the freshman who's only been there for 5 weeks. So, there was a lot more.
But I would also say I turned to you at one point in time during practice, and I said, if you mess up, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the best player in the A-10. He's going to freaking rip you. And that I think is probably the consistency that the players appreciate the most. If you screw up, you're going to hear it.
Yeah, that's right. So let's jump right into the players. So we'll talk a little bit about the roster. Let's talk about what we lost. We talked about this a little bit before. So we only lost 2 players to the portal, 2 players that we wished the best for, but not 2 players that were major contributors last year. So we're not missing returning players who put up lots of minutes on last year's team. So, Solis went to Columbia. Sulis playing for Kevin Hovde.
I think though it might be Solis because I can't get Hovde right.
So that's great for him. Also,
I actually think he's got great potential still. I think he'll make a good big man.
George Washington III, he also left and went to Florida Gulf Coast.
Best wishes for him.
Yeah, so we obviously wish the best for them and kind of will root for them as long as they're not playing the Spiders. We lost seniors who graduated that we'll miss, but we kind of knew that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So to have 8 players return, that includes 3 redshirt freshmen, along with the names I think that's great. And then, what did we gain when you're looking at the offseason? Through the portal, we brought in 4 new transfers. And it's a class, even before I, was at practice, was pretty excited about. I think we all know from last year's team, we needed more shooters, more playmakers.
And I think you and I probably have a different pick as we go through these players on who's going to be the most impactful. But why don't you start us off with AJ Lopez?
Yeah, well, the good news is if you look at the 4 players we got, 2 of them are coming in as their last year of eligibility. They're super experienced. They've played a lot of minutes. And the first one is AJ Lopez we'll talk about. He's come from Maine.
Yeah.
He's a 6'5" guard or wing. As you may remember, he scored 19 points against us in the Robins Center.
In the Robins Center for sure.
Maine had a great year. So they won 20 games. He averaged almost 15 points for them with good stats from 3, and he is a great free throw shooter.
What was interesting about practice was his 3-point shot actually is a little bit lower than the rest of his shots when he's driving to the hoop. It's like it starts from his chest and comes up. But it's effective because I think you said he has 40% from 3 last year, so he knows how to make them.
Yeah, I think the 3 for him is going to be if he's left open, he'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not running around screens with a guy in his face and shooting a 3. But I think when left alone, it's enough of a threat. And then if you watch his tape, when people tried to guard him tight, like he can drive and finish at the basket.
He's aggressive. He'll take you to the hoop. Who do you see him comparing to?
It's hard. Like we don't have a great history of folks who can beat people off the dribble and, let's say, shoot a 7-foot jumper or take it to the rim. I went back and it actually took me some time to find it. Like I could think of like Jermaine Bucknor.
That's a good comparison.
I think AJ's a little leaner. I think Jermaine could be more of he could post up at times during his senior year.
Jermaine was taller too, I think.
Yeah,
but I see. I know what you.
But I think Jermaine was not like he wasn't lethal from three, but he could shoot the three and he could drive and kind of beat people to the basket. So not a perfect comparison, but I do think AJ is going to be a major contributor, and I think what we saw in practice too. He is fast. Like the more we can push the ball, he will be a guy who finishes fast breaks or is part of that fast break, passing it to someone else to finish. He can be a big contributor on a fast break.
I agree with that. The other grad transfer we have is Will Johnston. Will comes to us from Loyola Marymount. He was a team captain there, but he's also from Australia, like the home of former Spider player Josh Dunker. And I've often joked that kids that come out of Australia are just tougher because I think 9 of the 10 most deadly animals on the planet live or reside in and around Australia. So I'm already a fan because if you can survive that rock, you can survive anywhere.
Well, and he does. I know this is subjective, but I'd say he's got the best hair on the roster, and that includes a rat tail.
Yes. You were a fan of the 80s hair bands, if I remember. And
I think rat tail is. I think of that more of an Anakin Skywalker thing versus hair bands. But yes,
I will say, if we've gotten a lot of comments on our Spider sound off intro music, that pays homage to the bands that Tom loved during the 1980s. So we'll give you guys some more insights as we go on during the season.
I think from practice, Johnston looked like he could run a team. And I think that's what he did at LMU. So I think he's very comfortable with the ball in his hands. While I think, Tyne will be the primary point guard. Like I think if Tyne's on the bench and Will has to run the point, he can do that.
Yeah, I thought he was just watching one practice now. So this is an opinion after one practice. I thought he was the most comfortable with his 3-point stroke of anybody on the team. I mean, he lets it go, and there's shades of Jordan King. You just feel like he knows where it's going, and he knows it's going in. So I think he's going to be an exciting player to watch. I think I'm not as sure he's as quick as a Tyne or even an Argabite. Is that his name? How do you spell Aiden's last name? Argabite? I'm not sure he's that quick. Argabright. I'm not sure he's as quick as those guys, but I do think he's a best pure 3-point shooter on the team.
I can see, and I think we'll have multiple times where him and AJ are like leading the break. Walls gets the rebound, gives it to them, and those two are going to be pushing it and be very comfortable passing to each other as they go through and get an easy layup when the other team's not.
Who do you compare him to, past Spider?
Wasn't easy either. Like I came to David Gonzalez just because he was someone who could handle the ball when needed to, but just was a great shooter. And I think that's where, if you look at stats from last year, I think Will's challenge is, like a lot of players, is consistency. You'll see him score 20 and then score 5 in the next game. But he scored 33 2 seasons ago against Gonzaga. So, like, he knows how to score.
He's a scorer.
But I do think, if we can get him and AJ to maybe be a little more consistent and less hot and cold, I think we'll have two guys who contribute a lot for us.
I think there will be games in the Robinson of this year where he gets hot and just takes over the game, and we're all going to be like, we need that every week because he's just that kind of guy. He's got the shot. He knows how to play basketball. It's going to be fun to watch.
I'm hoping at some point there's a giveaway at Spider Games, which is a rat tail that everyone can clip to the back of their head, kind of in support of.
I'd wear one
of Will. So Porter, I'm pretty sure your favorite. Is kind of a local kid, Jaden Daughtry.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
tell me what you think about
Jaden Daughtry is a man. I mean, he's a full-grown man. He's a huge, physically imposing presence. 6'7", but he's big, he's strong, and he's going to be a beast. I think he's going to be the biggest surprise for Spider fans. His physicality inside will remind you guys more of a. They who shall not be named that have a campus 6 miles from ours player inside. I think he's going to be physical. I think he's going to pound some people. He's going to grab some rebounds. He's my vote for getting most minutes and most points, actually, a game from all of the transfers that are coming. I think he's going to be a beast.
So he was last season 13, a little under 13 off the bench for Indiana State. So he was kind of their bench player, was all bench team in the league. On the most improved team. So he ascended a lot last year. The stat, is I find really interesting, 85% of his field goal attempts were kind of at the rim. So he is an inside presence. But one thing I noticed at practice, he was super comfortable shooting threes. So I think that's a part of his game that it can take him from, I guess, where he was to being kind of a, the all A10 type of player. He can be. Now, he's coming in with 2 years of eligibility, too, so that's great. Like, he doesn't need to be a star from day one. He might be, but I think we'll hopefully see him for the next 2 years, so there'll be a lot more. If he starts for our team this year, it'll be the first time. I mean, he started, I think, 3 games last year, so his first step is to be a starter and a big contributor there, and then I think if he adds that 3
He led that Indiana State team in BPM coming off the bench, which we talked about in our last episode. Which is a neutral statistic. It's an advanced stat for just, who's making the biggest positive contribution to the team. So he's a player. You actually told me you thought he reminded you of Bigelow. Bigelow, I think, is a little bit longer, and I would say that Daughtry's bigger. So I actually think of him more as, like, for you older Spider fans, like a Mike Hodges. He's a physical scrapper around the rim, and I think he's going to be a good player for
What
us.
I like about the Bigelow comparison is I think Bigelow's first year at U of R, it was primarily at the rim inside, and he kind of developed that 3-point shot, and by his senior year at U of R, he could hit the 3, which made him that much more dangerous because he could now beat people who were off the dribble who tried to guard him out from 3.
Absolutely.
So the last transfer we had coming in is David Thomas, came from a year at DePaul. He also had a year at Mercer before that. I'll do a bit of a side. I have a giant DePaul weakness. In the 80s, they were my favorite college team. Rod Strickland, Dallas Comegys, Stanley Brundy. Maybe some of those names are familiar. And actually, my love for Rod Strickland introduced me to Johnny Newman. Rod Strickland, when he got drafted by the Knicks, Johnny Newman was a Knick, and Rick Pitino had become head coach and was the innovator in the NBA at the time of focusing on the 3-point shot. So they had a group of, I think, 5 guys, including Strickland and Johnny Newman, who were called the Bomb Squad. At some point in high school, I had the Bomb Squad T-shirt that had the 5 of them on the shirt. So
your Chicago roots run deep. You are a Cubs fan.
Yes, that
but
is
back
true.
to David for a second. He had a really interesting path. He was a freshman star at Mercer, averaged 11 points and over 2 assists in just 22 minutes a game, shot 45%, including 40% from the 3-point land. The Mercer coach got dismissed. He went to DePaul. And DePaul brought in a bunch of new players, and
they had 10
new
off
players.
the portal with their new coach.
Yeah, that's the world that we live in, folks. In this Neil Portal world, they had 10 new players. He didn't have great stats at DePaul, but from watching him in practice, I'm going to tell you this: don't judge his DePaul stats on how good this kid could be. He's actually a player. He held his own in every situation that I saw. I didn't think we had a lot of drop off from Tyne to him, or really from any player to him.
So we've wrapped up talking about the 4 transfers into Richmond. I think we're going to end part 1 at this point. We will have part 2 of this session on episode 4. So until then, thank you for joining us, Spider fans, and we will talk to you soon.